What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Hollywood Already Did It, your podcast where we try to figure out why we keep rebooting, remaking, and sequelizing movies. As always, I'm your host, Blake Schultz, and with me is Terrence Tatum.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we are talking about one of the, do I dare say, one of the most influential comedies of all time.
I could say
Is that
that.
is that fair in years after The Office, Parks and Rec, Best in Show, Abbott Elementary, almost every single mockumentary sitcom, every mockumentary feature, I believe without a doubt that it all comes back to Spinal Tap.
Yeah, I
That
feel
it,
like that they are the grandfather of all of this.
this
Yeah.
is, yeah. We are talking about the very, I don't, long awaited, I guess,
For
sequel.
an audience.
This sequel is actually it's fascinating because I feel like this movie solely exists because of the rights and the entanglements and the Hollywood accounting of the first movie. This almost entirely exists because nobody got a piece of the first pie.
Yeah.
And that is such a unique thing for movies in general and for our show to talk about, because I feel like every now and then we hit a movie that is like, well, they had to make it or they'd lose the rights. Well, they had to make it or this would happen. This is one where it's like, well, they had to make it to kind of get what was theirs 40-ish years ago.
Yeah.
Like it's a very it's I we'll get into it, but Spinal Tap was Rob Reiner's directorial feature, his first big movie. It was the first big mockumentary looking at, making fun of rock and roll and metal and how these bands act and behave. Obviously, most famously, it gives you the like, well, this goes to 11. A movie that did okay on its opening and then found this second life in VHS and cult following. And I think it's one of those weird movies that's permeated so much of pop culture that even if you haven't seen it, you know it.
Yeah.
You know what I
It-
mean? Like
It's kind
it's
of like
strange.
Rocky Horror for horror. Like I feel like even if you haven't seen Rocky Horror, you know the beats of it because it's such an ingrained piece of the zeitgeist by now.
Yeah, it's even like The Godfather 2, like if you watch The Simpsons or Family Guy, you know
Yeah.
these movies.
But
Like
I
you know
use
what I
I
mean?
right, but I use Rocky Horror because I feel like both Rocky Horror and Spinal Tap are like specific to a niche. Like there's an audience that is specific to those. Whereas Godfather and some of those are so large, the world as itself is kind of consumed those. Whereas there's a great deal of people who don't know Spinal Tap and a great deal of people who don't know Rocky Horror, but because they've gotten so bigger than life within that fandom that they have grown to sort of seep out of that fandom and kind of permeate other things. And a lot of the documentary mockumentaries that we talk about steal and borrow a lot of things from that first Spinal Tap. This movie included.
Yeah. And I think that this came out in what, 1984?
84, yeah.
So I don't think either of us saw it in theaters.
No.
Uh, when 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 was the first time you saw Spinal Tap? What was your
To be 10-ish,
when were
I
you
think.
tapped?
When was I tapped? It was like 94-ish, I remember, like in the mid 90s, in my like junior high, right before high school era is when I saw it. And it was a matter of because I was watching things that like some of the movies that I started comedy that I started digging was sort of falling into that zeitgeist of like, oh, we're sort of winking at you, we're letting you know that we're in on the joke, but we're also kind of telling a sort of side story, and you believe it or you don't believe it. And so I watched it. And granted, I was not a rocker, but because I was in Detroit, some Detroit Rock City stuff sort of bled in. And so I was aware that's how I was kind of fed to this and pointed in this direction. And I dug it. I dug the comedy, even though I wasn't really of that world. I was like, this is funny stuff. The Rob Reiner piece of it all, I kind of dug. And I was like, okay, I get what they're going for. And then subsequently the Borats came, and I was like, okay, now I see how this comedy can then bleed into something over a documentary that fits more into my comedy stylings. But yeah, when I first saw this, I was like, oh, I don't really have this type of comedy anymore. And for a while there, they stopped making those type of movies. It wasn't really until Borat kind of reintroduced them for film You had it with Modern Family and stuff on
I was like,
TV and
it
Office.
really became a format that went to the sitcom. Like it
Correct.
more than any other. I often talk about where I think the downfall of the feature comedy is TV.
Yeah.
That like everything we got from the American Pies or the Austin Powers or the Naked Guns, we started to get from Seinfeld, Friends, The Office, The Simpsons,
Community.
King of the Hill, all Community. But I think this in particular, the mockumentary format, really became a television thing. It
Hmm.
like really between like the Muppets did it, Abbott Elementary is probably the most recent, Modern Family, The Office, Parks and Rec, The British Office. It like lends itself to that in such a unique way. But we also, I mean, we had Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman. There's like a handful
I would
of
say
them.
currently, I would say the biggest ones has been like Pop Star was probably a massive, a big
Popstar
one.
is, and that's a
What we
very,
do in the shadows is another one of those where it's kind of like, oh, we're going to watch behind the scenes, but that's like a behind the scenes of a vampire. Like it's a several layers of it. Theater Camp was recently probably the most recent mockumentary style. So they still happen, but they are very, very much a
they're few
TV
and far
trope.
between.
Yeah, it's more of a TV trope than it is a film trope anymore.
And a lot of the ones that we mentioned, I don't think did
Then none
great
of the
in
no.
theaters. Yeah,
And
like pop,
even
like
Popstar, which I think is the one that's almost a direct, it's like the grandson of this type of film. None of those did well. Theater Camp, I love because I'm a theater camp kid. I'm a theater kid, but like no one no one saw that to this
no,
point.
and it is a great. It's such a good comedy that it is such a shame.
Yeah.
Like Popstar is so good, and it's funny because it almost kind of had the same thing that Spinal Tap had, where this movie came out to like a, I think it was a $2 million budget. It made 5 million, possibly I think overall. Like it barely did much. Um, and then suddenly exploded. And I feel like Popstar has had this like renaissance on
Hmm.
streaming, and like almost everyone I know has seen this movie. But when you look at the box office, it's like no one even knew this was out.
No.
And it's funny because it's made this is Spinal Tap's almost become a more interesting movie to like study than it is like hilarious. Like I don't think I would ever really show it to many people to be like, you got to watch this hilarious 80s comedy.
Yeah.
That you almost go more to like the Ferris Bueller, the Breakfast, like these other big movies. But it
Hmm.
is like it has such a long reach. So you liked it when you first saw it. You were in the 90s.
I
You
did.
watched it and you were like, I understand white people now.
But to your
So
point, it
this
is
is
a
the whites
very
music.
specific audience. And like it's not quite because it's not their rock, but it almost has a smarter UK style comedy where it's more
It's
verbiage and like
so
that's
dry.
very dry. And like if you're not catching those, you could just be completely bored out of your mind by this. So I can get how this doesn't hit the everyday comedic audience. I dug that type of stuff, and so I was in on like the it reminds me a lot of a Clue, the old Clue movie kind of falls into that same sort of where you're like, oh, you have to listen to the dialogue and sort of play along with the words are very important here. And if you're just kind of like not excited by the things happening, then you will sort of just be like, you will check out. So I get how the comedy didn't work, but it worked for me because I won't say that I was smarter, but I understood sort of that UK-ish style of comedy that was
It's
delivered here.
very dry, almost like pun heavy, like
Yeah.
wordplay. And you're right. I think Clue does that. I think Naked Gun does that.
Mhm.
I think there's a lot of older movies that were kind of, it's almost like a witty movie. Like you are
Yeah.
just kind of like, oh, it's very fun. And like I rewatched it right before I went and saw the second one because it had been so long. And I was like, man, it is funny how many jokes in it kind of pass you by, but the ones
Hmm.
that don't are just like so like you like the 18-inch Stonehenge. You laugh for the rest of the movie. You're just
Yeah.
like, so when we have you're telling me this is it. You're telling me that I'm looking at it right. Well, he said 18 inches. He wrote it down. You're like, oh, this is so like Zoolander stole this for the
Hmm.
like this is a center for ants. Like that's all you're doing. And I think it is that weird kind of comedy where when you watch it, you're just like, oh, every single movie I've ever watched is directly stealing from this movie.
Yeah.
Everything is pulling from it, which is funny because it's what I think makes it such a cultural iconic movie, and it does have the, I always call it like the comedic cheat code. And I think Pete Holmes has also said it on his podcast where he's like, I hate stand-up comedians who use a guitar because you can just manipulate the audience. And
You can
it's
do
kind
whatever
of
you
how
want
I
with
feel
chords
about,
and yeah.
yeah, it's almost like every time this movie almost loses you, they play a song and you're like, I'm back. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it feels just so like it is such a interesting thing because all the songs are hilarious. But it's the same thing we almost talk about with Ghostbusters, where it's like, well, the joke is just that this is silly, but we take it seriously.
Hmm.
And I think that's like the interesting thing when you get to a pop star, it's so slapstick and big and like nothing is serious. Where this is like, and it works in pop star because they do eventually like he takes stuff seriously eventually, but he's still kind of like a an idiot for lack of a better word. And nobody
Yeah.
in this movie really is like an idiot. Like they're all
No,
smart
they're all
musicians.
earnest with what they're trying to do in music, their music and musicianship. It's just like funny stuff happens around them as a whole, and it works a lot because they are taking things so serious. Like that, the humor is in the fact that they aren't in on the joke. Everyone else is sort of laughing, like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" But like they are kind of playing everything straight. Even with like we go back to the to collect all of our musicians, and one of them's in the cheese shop, and he's selling a half cheese, half guitar. And he's like, he's dead serious about like people bring me a half full of cheese and I give
It's
them and I weigh it with
and
my
you know
hands
I
and then I
trust my
weigh it
hands more than a scale, and
and
I
like
kind of go like this, and then I
I'm
go like
dying.
this. Like, yeah, it is. Yeah, so yeah, let's get into this second movie because I immediately upon leaving was like, I need to watch it again. And I think we'll get to the why, but there were so many like big laughs I had, but I still kind of walked out being like, okay. And I think
Yeah,
it's because the ending is very like low.
the
Um,
yes, which is weird for a comedy, especially comedies today. They tend to end up on a high note where we're taking you on a big laugh or something that you're going to talk about as you exit the theater. And this movie sort of ends on a very much of like, oh, that's it type of feel, which
yeah,
is
you want,
weird.
so yeah, so we'll kind of, let's just run through it. I guess we'll do our full spoilers and then we'll get into like, why does this exist today?
Yeah.
Why did we drag these people out? But it is exactly as promised. We meet their manager's daughter because the actor has passed on.
Hmm.
Which is, obviously, it's like it's great that he passed on. Is not what I'm saying, but it's a great thing for the movie to kind of be like, oh, this other person owns this contract. They have to do one more. We have to go get the band back together. They're owed one more show. It's now been
Yeah.
so long in their world that they have influenced the Beatles and Elton John and all the it almost in like a walk hard in this world they are as big
They
as
are
the Rolling
legends.
Stones.
Correct.
They
They are
are,
legends. Yeah.
yeah, which is almost hilarious because like when we left them, like when we meet them in Spinal Tap 1, we're reading reviews where one person's like, all this says is shit.
Yeah.
Can you even
Can you
print
even just
that? Can
type
you
print that?
say,
Yeah.
I don't think you can even say that. Like, and we end with this show that does not go the way they want at
No.
all.
Correct.
But then we see kind of the years going on and the crowds and the people. And I listen to it every night. And that's relaxing to you. Like you find this music to be relaxing.
Soothing. All right.
Like, yeah. So you get to see the impact on it. And then we kind of are like, we don't really know why. The mystery of the movie is like, why did they
Why
stop?
they split. Yeah.
So then we have to go find everybody. We find the cheese shop is easily my favorite.
Best one.
The glue shop is also pretty good.
Yeah.
And then the lead is just kind of like he's making like waiting music for phones.
Which is
That
kind
was
of
a
that's funny. I think the beat went on a bit too long, but I still had a good time in it.
that's such a like I think it's somebody in there also into The Simpsons. I think it's Harry Shearer
Harry
also
Shearer,
became
the
yeah,
guy who's the glue
that
guy is the Simpsons guy. Yeah.
that's such a Simpsons joke of
It is.
like, oh, I make the waiting music
Yeah.
when you're on hold. Do you want to listen to
You want to
it?
listen to it?
It's like who, and it's great because like no one's ever thought who somebody has to write this fucking music.
Hmm.
Someone there's somebody out there in the world who's like, yeah, that's right. I did the dun dun dun
You know what's
dun
crazy though, because
dun
like I
dun
thought the
dun
joke was
dun.
going on too long, but then they pay it off with like I won the Holdie Award, and that's the
I
award for
want to
Hold. And
hold it.
I was like, well, that's fucking that's brilliant.
Yeah, that there's that not only does somebody have to make this music, but then there is a like daytime Emmys version of there's an award. People gathered and voted
Yes.
and listen, like this has fans. This
Yeah.
has fans beyond the people just waiting. And those are like the weird kind of jokes that it isn't like think about it, but you do think about it longer and you are like, oh my God, what a
It's just like,
great
yeah,
because it is like some of this shit exists. Like ESPN
right.
8 is a real channel now.
Correct.
Like there's
Yeah.
like,
And like
and
I've been
there's
to random award shows for stuff. You're like, why does this have an award show? There should be only like seven of you.
there's so many. Like you have to figure. Like I feel like if somebody was starting out to make music, and if you were like an unsupportive person, and you were like, it's hard to make it, and they were like, nonsense. Elevators need music too, and then they would
Right.
like. They would get to the elevator music world, and there would be some dude there who's like, I've made elevator music for the last 90 years. My music plays in the Sears Tower, in the
Mm-hmm.
Empire State Building, and you're going to come in here now like you have something better to wait to. Do you know how long it actually takes for an elevator ride? Minutes. I make it feel like seconds. Like these people
Yeah,
exist, these
they
hyper
do.
competitive like
Yeah.
uh so it's great. It was, I will say in a weird way, very easy to get them back together. I didn't feel
Super
like there was
easy.
any conflict. We
No.
just saw where they were and they all were like, sure.
Yeah. And like
Uh
you have the underlying thing of like, oh yeah, Nigel and David had something going on, but it's not enough to not get them back for this last
yeah, they'll
hurrah.
still do it.
Yeah.
Which I wonder, is that really just the like they're under contract, what can you do?
Right.
Someone's exercising the contract.
Yeah.
Um yeah, and then we meet the guy, probably who I can't even think of the character name right now, but he is the like I can't hear music.
Oh, the new like
The
publicist.
new publicist
Yeah.
is like, oh, I can't hear it. Ask me to sing
Uh
a song.
I
Happy
think
birthday
it's
to you. Can't
Simon, I
sing it.
believe. I think Simon's his name. Yeah, he's like, I can't sing it. He's like, go. And they're like, wait, you're a concert promoter and you can't hear music?
It's
Yeah.
so I think it's such a great like it almost feels like a commentary on
The
the
state of
studio
music.
system,
Yeah, and how
even of the
we don't really care what you're putting out, what music is being said. Like
like
we're just
yeah.
gonna you're a product to us and we don't the music is irrelevant. Because even when he's giving them crap about like they need to stand up and like why would a rock group stand up and start moving around and doing dance moves? But he's like, nope, I'm gonna get you guys an exercise person and hope it's like they're 60. Like why would you get them on their feet and moving around? That's ridiculous.
Which also felt very like it feels like studio notes. It feels like when you hear about
Oh
these
yeah,
movies or musicians who are like, and then the producer came in and was like, no, you got to be doing what Taylor Swift was doing.
right.
And someone's like, we're not Taylor
That's
Swift
that's not
though.
us.
Like that's not what we're doing. And it kind of, I think that's what makes the movie interesting compared to the first. The first is such a like, oh, we're just going to parody rock stars in their world and follow this group. And this one kind of takes pauses to do the like commercialization. Like we stop to do the like Spinal Tap water
Hmm.
and the arena. We're going to make the IHOP before
Yeah,
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it feels very of today in a
it
way that
is.
I think when you were doing it in the 80s, you were like, yeah, we just want to talk about this rock band and the music they make. And now you almost have to talk about
Like
the
the
record
world around it,
label and the
everybody around it.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Like even the stage, like when they have the thong with the butt and then they put in a long fart. And Nigel's like, well, why is this here? Like, why can't we just do the song?
So you're saying you want me to go down to the train and
And get an
record
old
someone
like another
farting?
woman farting.
Well, no, but that would be, it's
I
funny
mean,
how often people were doing things they didn't want to do
they just
and they
acquiesced.
never, Yeah, they always acquiesce. They never fight back. They're always just like, well,
No,
I guess if it's gonna fart, it should at least be this. Like they almost always try to make it like, well, if it's gonna happen, it should be like this.
right.
Like it feels very. You can even feel it in like a Larry David type way.
Hmm.
Like it is another moment where you're like, oh, I can see where all of the influences get to. Yeah, the movie has so many funny moments, and their new drummer is great, and like she's
Yes.
fantastic.
And the running bit of like they can't keep a drummer,
We
and so
can't
she's
keep a
now
drummer.
trying to live like basically unchase the Final Destination side of like that's not going to get me.
I'm
I want to
eating
be
healthy.
I'm eating healthy. Yeah.
Yeah, we really did everything that you would want this movie to be. Every like cameo was great.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think my favorite was Metallica's Hetfield. Just like, well, you know, guys, I've been doing this Metallica thing that's been going on for like 40 years. Well, you don't have to leave
You can
Metallica.
still be with
Like,
Metallica.
it's it's also funny because almost every cameo person they bring in, it feels like they're not in they're in that world. They're
They're
as
still as
silly as
correct.
Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Like every drummer they talk to like doesn't get that they can be in two bands.
Yeah.
Like every one
Yeah.
of them is like, well, it's a little dangerous, but
Well,
and you know,
Questlove's like,
I'm busy.
I'm getting a colonoscopy like on multiple days. Like, what?
It's, yeah, having Questlove be the first person to turn them down to be like, I got to go get this colonoscopy that day, and they're like, well, we could. Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I mean, half of this budget, this $22
It's
million
got to
dollar
just be
budget,
on cameos
must have been going to Elton John
and McCartney
and Ringo and McCartney.
and just
I
being
almost said
like,
Ringo
yeah, getting the two of them because that's got to be where most of the money went to
because they're in it. They're not just like everyone else is just on this computer screen.
for
They're
like,
like
right. You can do your part from
characters
Zoom. They're
in the
correct.
movie.
Correct.
They almost use McCartney as like the emotional turning point for them to be
Yeah.
like, oh, we have to bring in a mentor because they're not getting along. He's gonna be the like Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And you still have these great cutaways where they're like, well, he just kind of comes in and does whatever he wants, doesn't he? Like they just rip him
Rip
apart.
from apart.
It's Paul McCartney. Like, who else could you argue with?
Right.
Uh, and they find a way to be like, this is how egotistical this guy is to be like, well,
Yeah.
he just came and started telling me what to do. And it's like, yeah, man, he's
We
the
should listen to
greatest
him.
to ever do it. Like,
Yeah.
and he's so calm and
He
composed. And
is.
like,
It's very,
you,
yeah.
you have to imagine that that day on set was like a dream come true for everyone. That
Everybody.
everyone was just like, oh my God.
Well, even the Elton John piece, to your point, he acquiesces. Like he wants to sing the one song, and then they're like, well, the promoters are like, well, that sounds like it's a little too much piano. And then Derek is
Yeah,
like, well, he is the piano man.
he is Elton
There
John.
should be pianos. That's gonna be a part of like that's his thing. That's what he does.
Which is also just, it's again like such a studio note of like, well, the movie's a little too scary. It's a horror movie. Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
you really do feel like this is the guy who is the, I think like famously Halsey recently, they were like, oh yeah, they told me I needed more TikTok followers. And you're like, but you're already
But you're a super,
famous.
yeah,
Like
like
you
I'm
don't,
confused.
like what? Like it feels like the weird things that you do hear about in music where they'll be like, yeah, you know, we were talking to Green Day and we told them they have to do something new. And it's like, we have 5 platinum.
I
We
think
don't we don't actually have to do anything.
they're a legacy
Like
now. I think
it's
we're
like we don't have like what are you talking like
yeah.
it's so indicative too of then him leaving at the concert of like and then he doesn't give a shit that he is just like I'm out
I'm
like
out. I've
like,
done,
I wish I
yeah.
could be here but I have to go see my biological mom.
Mom, never met her. This is the
they
one day that we can meet. I'm out.
and they keep finding the most like what like reasons for people to not be there. uh yeah, the movie, it's great. It's so fun.
It is.
And like when you look at, if you compare it to these other, like, I don't know, I hate the word legacy sequels, but other like sequel comedies that took 10 or more years,
Hmm.
it shines over the Anchorman 2s, the Zoolander
Zoolander 2s.
2s.
Yeah.
It's like almost everything else that's tried to like come back when we're older. This is the most like it feels like we stayed in that world. This
Hmm.
could have been the fifth Spinal Tap
Yeah, it
movie, and
feels
I
like
would
that
and
world as if it's existed and kept growing off camera, and then when we come back, we're just rejoining them after that time. Where some of those, like Zoolander, feels like they have not seen each other in years, and you can feel the comedy falling apart. This feels, oh yeah, I can see this as being a direct sequel to that, and the time that has been spent, we just weren't witnessing it, but the world was still Questlove and all these folks were still loving who these people were in that
it
entire time.
it is funny because like obviously Popstar is such a spiritual successor to
Mhm.
Spinal Tap, and I think Spinal Tap 2 is in an interesting place where I've said this before on the show about other movies, but we are now seeing the thing that influenced the thing
Hmm.
influence the thing.
Return. Yeah.
So like it is funny to kind of watch The Office and watch Best in Show and watch Popstar and then be like, oh, now Spinal Tap 2 has to take what they added to the genre they started
Hmm.
and find a way to do both.
Right.
And I think this movie does a good job with that because what it takes from Popstar is it is the same thing Zoolander 1 does. It takes the real people as if these are real. Like we
Hmm.
spend so much of Popstar. I think Questlove is in that too.
I
Like
believe,
we
yeah.
see, really, Popstar should have been in Spinal Tap 2. At
Yeah.
some point, we should have had Andy Samberg. That would have been my
Oh,
like,
that would have been great. My head would have been
yes,
like, oh, this is great.
that would have been the moment.
Yeah.
But it is so funny to see them kind of take those because we don't get as much real world stars in the first one. It's very
Right.
much just this. This one is way more like everybody knows these people.
Hmm.
Everyone you love in music. I kept waiting for Eminem to show up because they kept being like, well, it's
They Slim
shady and
Shady and
it's
yeah, yeah.
this. And I was like, oh, eventually Eminem is going to have some like, oh, I love Spinal Tap. I take everything from Spinal. Like I was waiting for it, especially when at the very end in the credits when they're like, "Oh, I was trying to do this folk rap group," but then it just you take the melody out and it's
Oh,
just
it'd just
people
be like
yelling
angry
threats.
threats and people.
And that's what I was like. We're about to cut to Eminem just like screaming. Like that's what we're about. Like that's where this belongs. But alas, we only get him in Happy Gilmore 2 this year.
Yeah. But I think what happens though is like with the first one, it ends with a concert, and the concert happens. Everything looks to be going well, and then it goes tits up.
in in true Spinal Tap fashion,
Yeah.
yeah, we go back to what the first movie didn't do. We get the Stonehenge at the right size. We do it all
Hmm.
correctly. And the most innocent, innocuous, hey, can you move my
Yeah.
stage forward?
I just feel
Which
like I need to be
is
closer.
which
Yeah.
is such a like, oh, and the artist would ask for this, and there would be someone who wouldn't think about the rest of the show and just be like,
Would
oh yeah,
just do
totally.
it. Like, yeah, well, yeah, we'll do that up.
100%.
And I love that Hope was like, don't blame this on her. Like, no one brought this up to me. Like, why was it just moved without anyone else bringing it up?
Yeah, this nonchalant stage manager who doesn't seem to care about anything at all.
Yeah,
What is interesting, and it's where a part of me like this is a short movie,
it
and I
is.
think and I think you're right at where I'm like, oh, I kind of wanted an extra maybe 15 minutes because like it is just like band. It falls over. We crush Elton John's legs.
And then we're out.
And then we see him in the hospital and the credits start to roll.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we don't really get to see the impact of this concert in a way that we did with the first movie and in
Yeah.
a way that even like Popstar did, where we get to kind of have this like big moment for
There's
everyone.
no huge moment for us as an audience to collectively say, "Yay, they're back and they're at their height. Cool, they got to do it." And it's weird because they're still firing off jokes pretty fast in the credits, and I'm just kind of like, "Oh, even there's a whole big reveal in that like Nigel and they want the one sleeping with each other's wife. Derek was the whole time like, I banged
Yeah.
his wife,
Oh
and I was
yeah, I
like, well,
banged it. Don't
that's an
tell
important
that
piece.
that felt very improvisational to me because I was so like, oh well, this kind of breaks the whole movie.
Right.
Like it's funny, but doesn't this like defeat
That's the point. That's where I was sitting there
everything,
because I was like, this is a very funny beat, but it undermines the Nigel and David,
the
like
whole
that
story
whole
we've been
piece.
doing.
And like when even when David walks off into the thing and watches the jazz players play and kind of remembers when they were younger and they did that. That beat's important, but it gets thrown
I
to
wish it was,
hell when you throw in that piece.
it also felt, that moment felt fast.
It
That was
did.
another moment where I was like, oh, this is really important.
I
We make
think
a point of Rob Reiner like yelling at his camera guy to
to
follow
follow
him.
them, yeah.
And we
I
get the most emotional beat of the story. And then he just walks on
but there's
stage
no
and is like, we're good.
collective, like, we're going to do it. Yeah. And I was like, I don't, as fast as this is moving, and I get it, you want to keep the jokes coming, but there should be, since the entire piece of this movie is put together in the fact that they were separated because the two of them broke apart, there should be a harder get back together after they get to the crux of what has been bothering them. And for them to go to be like, I dumped your
Yeah.
wife. I didn't. Yes, you did. I didn't. I swear I didn't. And he storms off. And then all of a sudden you come back together like, never mind, we're good.
Yeah.
Just doesn't feel right. And then you throw it up, you mess it up even more when you be like, Derek is like, it was me. I,
Yeah. And I think that's why, I think one, when you let the credits roll and you still have not a post credit sequence, but literal scenes until the
hmm
credits are over, and you end with him talking to the drummer and she chokes, and we kind of have this like, ha ha ha, the Final Destination joke if it isn't done.
Yeah.
You're just sort of like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it really just didn't have a punch. It didn't have an emotional hit at the end. It didn't have like a we did it moment. Because then even when we meet everybody after, they're all kind of like, I don't think we're going to do it again.
Yeah, we're done. We're never going
And
back to
you're
this
like,
again.
oh, okay. So we're just back to the glue and the cheese.
And mine was like you said it wasn't in yours. I think it was just the way they programmed the theater, but mine was even more disorienting because the second the quote unquote credits hit, my lights in my theater came up. So I'm watching this whole these last bits with the lights on. I'm like, well, this feels jarring. Now I know that's not technically on the film, but there is a cue that happens in a lot of theaters that when the credits roll, the lights come on. And so if you're going to play all of these important scenes post credits, that's a thing that can happen. And that's what occurred in my theater. I was like, oh, yeah, you're not really doing yourself a service to the film if you don't put this stuff within, or just take 5 more minutes to breathe, let things breathe a little bit and get out of this before you can go to the post credit. Because I think the stuff with the drummer, sure, you can put that in credits. That's fine because it's a little afterthought. But the stuff with them all separating again, I feel like that would be better in the film to be like, hey, they got out of the hospital and they went about their ways again. Tell us that
Yeah.
story in the film.
Yeah. It just needed a more satisfying ending.
But yeah.
It was kind of my only, I'm like, it's so good and so funny, and they're all so good.
hmm
And then you just end on this like, oh, it fell. We broke Elton John's legs. Here's Elton John in the hospital with his
Yeah.
like bedazzled casts, which is a great gag. And then it's not the fault of the actors, but whoever's playing his like manager who's just like, we didn't sign anything, we didn't agree. And you're like, he's doing this so well
Yeah.
that it feels like we need to now have a whole story of getting Elton John in this movie.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it shouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
But otherwise it was great. And I think it is funny, when we get into the like the why, like why are we're now telling this nearly almost more than 40 years later. This was
hmm
84. Michael Jordan was a rookie. Like here we are.
Jesus. Yeah.
Year one. Um, even yet, because it would have been September. It doesn't matter. Um, but here we are, and I think what's interesting is the literal why, right? Like there, usually we do a thematic why, or like here's how it connects to
hmm
today. But this is, in the background of this movie, and I'm looking at this on Wikipedia, but it is after the 1984 release. Harry Shearer, Christopher Guest, Michael McCain, Rob Reiner, they got into this legal struggle over the rights and the profits. And in 2016, a lawsuit is filed against Studio Canal, Vivendi, and they talk about, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on Hollywood accounting, but if people don't know what Hollywood accounting is, it is basically when every movie has kind of a like section for what you're spending it on. And very often people will be like, oh, well, we didn't use money for this movie. Famously, it's Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi has never really like made money, quote unquote, because Disney, Fox, whoever will like kind of put profits from other things that don't do well into that and be like, well, that's part of the Return of
Hmm.
the Jedi budget. It's
Hmm.
weird and hard to explain, and but it is a fascinating thing to research. But basically, they allege that Hollywood accounting led to mismanagement of trademarks, inaccurate earnings. They reportedly said this is a crazy statistic that they only received $81 from merchandising and $98 from music sales over the decades. The
Wow.
suit also sought a $400 million in damages, reclaiming the rights under the Copyright Act, and they sued Universal Music Group over the soundtrack royalties and citing grossly insufficient compensation. This settlement was reached in 2019. And in 2020, after 4 years of litigation, it was determined that starting in January 1st, 2021, all rights, including characters, trademarks, licensing, merchandising, all of it, would be handed over to the new entity, Spinal Tap LLC, wholly owned by the four creators, Rob Reiner, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, Christopher Guest, restoring control over the original film and the IP. So it almost feels like this movie quite literally exists because they were like, we never got our piece of
We
the
never got our money
pie.
before. Yeah.
Let's go make a fourth one. Who cares if it only makes $1 million? We'll sell it to a streamer, and then
And
all that
it'll,
money is ours,
correct. Yeah. Yeah.
which is
Which is fascinating because
kind.
now that I think about it, that's why the this is Spinal Tap does not exist on any video. You can't find it on
No,
VHS. There's no streaming. It doesn't exist because of all of this. Now that makes sense because they're like, we're not giving this up. And folks are like, well, we don't have the rights to this music, so we can't put this on VHS because that creates a whole other sort of litigation problem. So like until now, it wasn't even allowed to be a part of this. And then shortly after that that suit was filed, Bleecker Street got purchased the rights for both the release of the original to go in a small like 1 week 41 year anniversary release for that, and then subsequently this. Now that being said, Bleecker Street has had some issues. Like someone high up in the Bleecker Street hierarchy passed within the last couple of months. So I don't know if that had any effect on this, but the publicity that they've used behind Spinal Tap has been horrific. Like
yeah,
no one has known that this stuff was happening. No one was aware that this was happening outside of your super diehard fans, and even them, they're not even that aware of it. So I don't. I don't think that the way that they've done all of this has been the best service. Now they're going to still get their money because eventually, to your point, the first Spinal Tap did not make money in the theater. This one also, there's nobody in my theater to. We'll talk about the box
less
office.
money. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah, the
yeah,
box office this weekend is fascinating,
it's
and
fascinating.
is
But like they didn't make anything, and but they're going to get it back on the streaming, and I think they're okay with that. But I do think they left money on the table. Like I do think that they could have done this a lot smarter, even probably done back to back showings because the films are so short. You could literally have an hour 20, take a break an hour 20, and you got your audience. But you don't. I think they did it in under 2,000 theaters. That's a little too much for this. You probably could have shrank that and made it more of a like, hey, this is a treat. Get to the theater so you can watch Spinal Tap on their last concert tour. Like, big it up, make it a big thing. But it was so silent. Nothing. I heard nothing about this,
nothing.
which is fascinating, considering how big of a this should be like Rocky Horror. Maybe not to the extent because that sort of has grown each year, but that niche audience should have felt like this was a big event, and I don't think that ever occurred in anything that they did marketing wise.
No, I think they very much were like, we've got a movie that people like, it's getting well reviewed,
Hmm.
and if we build it, they will come.
Yeah,
And it almost feels, and maybe it's not a bad thing, but I'm like, it almost feels like it's just personal to them to almost just be like, we're gonna go
correct.
get ours. See ya.
Like it'll come. Yeah,
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, like no one in here is like a 20-year-old young buck. Like
no. And
it
I mean,
is.
I don't know about the other, I don't know about the other two that play David, but like Harry Shearer is fine. Like he's got Simpsons checks. He'll
Yeah.
be fine
Oh,
for the rest of his life.
all
And Rob
four of
Reiner,
these
yeah, I think
is
they're
fine.
all okay. So that might be why they're kind of just like, this is just a passion project. Like, yeah, we might be leaving money on the table, but we made this for the fans. Because the fans, I will say this, the fans of Spinal Tap have been asking for a Spinal Tap 2 for a while. And it was not until they got out of litigation that they could do this. So for them to be able to, these four folks still to be alive, to be able to do this for them is sort of a love letter. And they actually made a good film out of it. So I think they might just be like, look, we made a good film. It's doing, the people who see it like it. We got a standing ovation when we had our red carpet thing. Like we're doing well. Now it's up to you guys. Here you are. Here you go. We're going to get paid for it. One of these streaming services is going to buy it off of us. We're going to get paid for it. Here you go. And we're done. We're going to ride
And
off
we're
the
out.
sunset.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
we're going to
we
ride off the
won the
sunset.
battle we wanted to win. We spent
Yeah.
40 years trying to get our shit
Right.
back.
Correct.
Um, which I think is also where thematically, I guess, you do get into the relevance of the studio side that's in this movie of this guy who just is I think they literally like call him like a rat at the end when he leaves.
They
Like they
do.
very
Yeah.
much are like, fuck you.
Yeah, it's very much a like they because it's at the music side of it, they're not really saying it to the movie side, but it's clear that this is a fu to all the movie people who played with our money and
Yeah.
screwed us around all this time. Yeah,
And I think it is interesting in a era of TikTok musicians and weird old contracts and like you have a lot, right? Like they talked about the resurgence of Running Up the Hill, the Katie Bush song coming back and kind of being like, oh, there's a way to come back and do this. And that, her contract was famously, ironically, in her favor of like, oh yeah, I had all this, nothing happened at the time, and then Stranger Things ran with it, and then I got all the money.
hmm
You have Taylor Swift re-recording everything. You have like the Kesha's stuff. It goes on and on and on and on. The list of like musicians who don't own their stuff.
hmm
And even in Hollywood, you have like Sylvester Stallone right now being like, "Why? What do you mean
How
I
did
don't
I get
have
screwed out of
Rocky?
Rocky? How did I
How
get
do
screwed
I
out of Rocky?
not have
Yeah,
this?" Yeah,
yeah,
like it is interesting, and it's kind of fun then to have a character that everyone can kind of be like, this guy literally can't hear music, which is such a like, oh, these studio executives don't understand art. They can't
correct.
create art. They're not creative.
They don't get the
They're
musician's audience.
they
They don't
don't
get
understand it.
yeah.
They are going to come into these rooms and be like, a lot of piano, isn't it? And it's like, well,
hmm
it's Elton John.
It's right.
Like, what do you like?
Yeah.
It's Sir Elton John. Like, really? Like,
Should we stand? Yeah,
yeah, like
exactly.
it is just such a like middle finger. And a
It
part of me
is.
is like, oh, this whole movie exists for them to just be because Rob Reiner has famously never done a sequel, has been
No,
so against
he hates the
sequels
system. Yeah.
that it almost is him just being like, you know what, if I do this, it is going to be a big like fuck
F
you
you.
to all
Yeah.
these people.
Yeah.
Um, which I kind of dig. That's very rock and roll. That's very
It
Spinal
is.
Tap. Unfortunately, the movie has made $1 million
Yeah.
on a budget of 22.4. Now
I
everything I read about this budget makes a very big point to be like this is before tax incentives because they filmed so much of this in I think Louisiana and all these other
mhm.
places. So for all we know, this budget's going to end up being nothing. They're going to get all
Yeah.
this back. Uh, but a million that is easily the worst one that
I
we've done on this
I've not
show. I
seen anything
think
like that. Yeah, have not seen. I usually at least we know
outside
there's
of Bride
sometimes
Hard, which numbers weren't released for, have we
right.
seen a lower number this year?
Right. Like I barely anything that we ever talk about on this will get that low because at least we typically are talking about sequels or some type of IP. So there's usually just a natural top five attachment that just happens in any of those. For this to occur is just like what? I will say also, we've talked about this a little bit off the mic. This is the one week where this is where I felt my age, where I was like, I don't know what this number one film is. I no clue. I'm going to see Long Walk. I'm going to see this. And then all of a sudden, I look in all the PLF formats are this demon anime, and I'm like, what? So I was
Yeah.
completely taken aback.
What a yeah, it is wild. I'm not the biggest anime person.
It's not
I
my wheelhouse.
like
Yeah.
I like Yu Yu Hakusho. I like Cowboy Bebop. I obviously watched Pokemon growing up, and it kind of ends. And I like, you know what? And I do like Akira and Ghost in the Shell. There's a lot of anime movies that I like,
Hmm.
but it is certainly not something that I follow, and it's certainly not something that I will pretend to understand the fanship
Yeah.
of. That being said, the US debut of the anime sequel, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Infinity Castle, Sony owned Crunchyroll movie in North America, has hit $70 million from 3,315 theaters, including 33 million on Friday, to get the top opening ever for an anime title in North America's box office. It's
Yeah.
also one of Sony's best openings in a while. It's a record for Crunchyroll. It is the biggest animated, not anime, but animated debut in September when we don't adjust for inflation. That is bonkers.
It's
And that
nuts
is before we get into the other 49 worldwide markets, which bring it to 132. Well, that's what they made there
for this weekend.
for a
Yeah.
north of
They only have 400
$400
million. Like
million
what?
dollars.
Yeah.
Like what a moment where I am just like, okay,
Oh,
I I
all right. I missed that
I
one.
I
That is
don't
a
know.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that is a trip that I am not on. And kudos to
It's
all those who saw that and knew that was coming or got
I'm
behind
it,
this.
that's the weird thing, right? Because it makes me very happy that there are now things that I don't know or follow,
Hmm.
but everyone's going to see. Because I
Correct.
think very often in this weird, I don't know, post COVID, people going back to the theaters or not, it is like, okay, so people will go. Once you figure out what they want to see, they'll go. Because this is also like, I'm not going to sit here and talk about that Variety article forever about Disney losing the males or whatever nonsense that is.
Mm-hmm.
But this 57% male. And of that 57, the vast majority were 18 to 34. So, like, Sony just threw a dart and hit the target.
Figured out right.
Like,
I was like, all right, young
they
men,
did it.
gotcha. Right.
Like, and it's crazy because I'm sitting here at like 36 and I'm like, okay, so I'm 2 years out of the, which kind of, you know what, though, that when I say that out loud, that makes sense because I feel like everyone I knew in high school who was like a freshman when I was a junior loved anime. I feel like everyone I knew younger than me, because I grew up with Toonami and I loved Toonami, but it didn't really stay with me. But everyone younger than me, that I might be the line of I might be the generational divide, because
Where
almost
it's like
everyone I know
they
younger than me,
grew up with it,
yeah,
yeah, and
my
yours it became a
roommates,
part of your life, but you had already gotten the things that you loved and whatnot, so it wasn't like I don't have an
yeah,
attachment to this. Yeah,
yeah,
that's fascinating. Again, I think I told you I walked out of the theater because both times that I went to go see The Long Walk and the Spinal Tap 2, I was in the same theater, but it was one that was way in the back of the theater. And I was like, what is taking the PLFs? If both of these and Downton Abbey is also not in the PLF, what is taking the PLF? So I went over to the theater, saw the marquee, and I was like, oh, I don't know this movie. I am clearly I've
you
lost
know,
something.
I kept seeing posters for it, and I just kind of kept being like, oh, this must be like a Fathom when they do
That's what I thought it was. Like, you know how you put
things.
in front of the trailers
Yeah.
like Fathom event. Yeah.
I've never been happier to like feel old
Yeah. I was
because a
like,
part of me
cool.
is like,
Y'all got
okay, cool.
something.
I
Good
don't know
kids.
this, but
Yeah. I was
like
like, good for y'all.
clearly this is doing gangbusters.
Yeah.
And then, The Conjuring Last Rites, which hit the fourth best opening of a horror movie last week,
Yeah.
fell 69%, which is, it's funny when like a superhero movie falls 69%, we're like, oh my God, it's
The
the
sky is
end
falling.
times. But
Yeah.
like here it is for The Conjuring, and everyone's just kind of like,
Like,
okay,
well done.
like, which really just shows you how performative
Yeah.
so many people are. Um, and it's funny because that is like the anime surprise, the movie in its second week. Then we get to Downton Abbey, which is
Hmm.
another like niche audience. Everyone goes if they like it.
And that's
Came
a
out with
small theater release too. Like they're not everywhere. So that's a good number for them
and it and
with
it
the
was they got the biggest house in the theater near my house right now. They had it
okay.
wasn't a premiere format because it's a landmark, but it was the
Right.
number one auditorium. It was the like,
Okay.
I think it's 250 seats. So they
Got
gave
it.
it to Downton Abbey there, which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
18 million. Well, maybe it's not interesting. Maybe that's just how it is. 18 million. The Long Walk then comes in at fourth with an estimated 11.5. And then the 30th anniversary of Toy Story comes in.
I
Like,
saw
and then
that
it,
pop up there. I was like, how is that one over? Like, what is
and then the
happening?
filmed adaptation of Lin-Manuel's Hamilton comes in for 2 million. And then the 60th anniversary of The Sound of Music comes in with 1.5. And then, only then, I guess actually Spinal Tap is a little bit higher. It's just not on this chart in the right place.
Yeah.
And then 1.7 for Spinal Tap 2. Absolutely
Yeah.
insane. Now, I was born in 89, so I missed maybe I'm just maybe the nostalgia for that time has passed. And yet, as I say that, the Sound of Music's 60th anniversary
Toy Story is
makes
still,
almost the
yeah.
same. Toy Story, I am almost surprised didn't do better. That's one where a
Because
part of
there's
me is like,
no other kid film right
where are
now.
all
So
of the
that is,
millennials my age who are sure that was the
yeah.
first 3D movie I saw in a theater. That was
Yeah.
the first. I think it might have been the first, but I remember seeing that in the theater. Yeah, it is a fascinating weekend because it's
Yeah.
like, well, the box office is healthy. Clearly, we're all out of the loop of how big anime
Hmm.
is in America now,
Hmm.
which is fine. And then you have The Conjuring still doing Conjuring stuff, which makes sense. And then everything, and then even Downton Abbey, even that makes sense. And then it starts to just be like, I'm sorry, what are we doing?
What's
The
happening?
30th anniversary. Okay. Because like I remember when it was Star Wars and we were like, oh, episode 3
Re-release.
was whatever it was, second, third for that weekend. Made a lot of money. But like the Turtles just did their 35th anniversary. I didn't even see it on any of these lists.
Mm-mm.
Not that the Turtles have ever been as big as Star Wars, but like it almost feels like something we need to track now. Cause like Fathom is now going to do all three Spider-Man movies.
Right.
Those are coming. And I'm like, are we now getting to a point where when you're picking, when your movie comes out, you
You
also
have
need to
to
be like, oh,
account
are we
for
about to
re-releases.
re-release? And it reminds me of, and this will be my last point, and then we'll get out of here, but it reminds me of when Titanic re-released against
Hmm.
American Pie, and everyone was like, can you believe American Pie beat the re-release of Titanic? And I'm like, are we back to that where I'm going to have to be
Yeah.
like, I don't even know what weekend the Spider-Man movies come out. I don't even know what it's up against, but like, it'll be so interesting if like, even if it's an IP, like if whatever it is, and they're just like, well, what do you want? Spider-Man 2 is here again.
Yeah. I can imagine that both Spinal Tap and Long Walk put their flag in the sand on this date because they didn't see any other competition. And
Nothing.
that's including Demon Slayer and that's including the re-releases that we got smooth sailing.
They are, if those other, I don't want to call them outliers because I don't know if they are yet because K-pop also made a ton of money. So I don't think I want to be like, well, these are random once in a lifetime. I don't think that's the case. But if you didn't have that and these re-releases, The Long Walk and Spinal Tap and Downton Abbey would be the ultimate. There's something for everybody this
Hmm.
week. Like
Yeah.
it $1 million is so crazy. Like it's so funny to just be like, man, it really also shows you that where it is like, I have no idea where they advertised this thing.
Same.
I don't know if it was on
Outside of me
Crunchyroll.
seeing
I
it in
don't know
front,
if it was
that's
on
where what
TikTok.
I did look up because I told you when I got home I was like, how did I miss this? And I saw the box office. Apparently they targeted Crunchyroll, but WWE had a lot of ads in front of it on SmackDown. So that's how those males 90
That
like
all
18 to 34 that
tracks.
all tracks. They targeted men stuff in that age group. I think they're like some of the fights, like the Netflix fight that they just had go up, like that's what they've been targeting this whole time.
Because it is also like and now it sounds so like, I don't know, is it a show? Is it like,
I am not the one. I have zero.
I think
Yeah,
it has a built-in fan base too.
it
I think
does.
this
It
is
does.
either this is either like the
I think
first
this is like the
of of a movie series, but I think it's been going on,
yeah.
or it's you know, it is one of those ones where it's just like, I don't know, I'm not the guy, but
I'm
like
not the guy.
but it oddly does make me be like, great, that's awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. Like, this is so great. As long as the theaters are fine.
Yeah. You fill in the
But
PLFs, screw it.
I mean, it also just shows you the shift, right? Like, people were like, well, what's going to replace these superhero movies? And it's like, well, it's going to be the anime and video game adaptations.
Hmm.
It's going to be the thing that kind of beat comic books in the 80s when Nintendo and anime, and well, the 90s was more when anime showed up in America, but like, those are the trends. Like,
Yeah.
it's just going to be a reflection of that. But that is our show, guys. You can, of course, follow us at Hollywood ADI on TikTok and Twitter. I'm at, as always, Blake. Terrence is at Terrence Tatum. You can leave a comment or a review for the podcast, or if you're on YouTube, Hollywood already did it, where Terrence does our show reviews and our trailer reactions. And I'm sure very soon a deep, deep dive into all of these weird animes that he doesn't know. um, Clearly, that's where the money
That's where
is.
it's at.
What a what a time. But that's it. We will be back next time.
Later.